The link between violent videos and crime.
Research is taking place and it will show.
So-called video nasty.
These films not only affect young people,
My mum don't really let me, but I watch them when she's not in.
but I believe they affect dogs as well.
Knowing that children are likely to see
Caught up in the video nasty, scared.
Wave of moral outrage.
Films without certificates
on a list circulated by Scotland Yard
in our societies.
have been seized on video.
Blaming horror movies.
We don't believe in constraining the media.
Hello, and welcome back, my trusty and trusted band fans, to this episode 10 and a half, as it were, of the Video Nasty Review Podcast. At least one subscriber is calling that one which the host seems to have recorded and fed through some AI software called TwatGBT, as he doesn't seem capable of sticking to the point for more than 3 exhausting fucking minutes.
Let's get the band back together.
An Englishman's exercise in what you might call climbing a hill of hellishness.
Yesterday it was a mountain.
And coming down a mountain of monstrousness. With a knapsack bulging with the 150 or so most disturbing VHS tapes in history from the time when horror met home rental, and for a few years in the 70s and 80s, friendly newsagents could provide innocent British children with candy cigarettes and some fresh snuff on the side. Last time we were together, we were digging into the 1971 scary sculptor with a scalpel screamer, Headless Eyes.
Now here's a guy with an unusual hobby. He collects eyes and doesn't care where he has to go to get them.
This week, despite warnings to the contrary from loved ones, we're going back to discover what the public, promoters and politicians thought of the whole damned movie and why we're still living amongst its reverberations over 50 years later. Chronologically, this is film 10 on our list of nasties, naughties and nonsense, and my, what a grubby little flick it is. Part artsy project, part slasher, to all intents and purposes virtually a home movie. And it sticks out, I think, on our band list as being probably the, what should we call it, least enjoyable movie so far? I don't know. I suppose Love Camp 7's Third Reich Nazi nastiness is likely to hold that top spot for a while, at least until we get to episode 45 with, well, I won't spoil it, it'll be next to spring at this rate. And trust me, the director spoiled it enough himself in 1976.
Nazi officers cruel and keen, human life no value, their experiments that chill the bone.
But rewatching Headless Eyes in all its New York 42nd Street grindhousiness, it is somehow the most bleak. The tape most likely, I think, to just turn off bored halfway through and simply never bother going back to. How does it end? What does it matter? What happens to the crazy one-eyed arty Arthur? Who cares? I think I read that he dies. Good. Because for all its attempts at artistic pretensions and highbrow musings on art and culture, or the pseudo-tortured imagery and symbolic motifs, one can't escape as another killing follows another killing that is there just to justify its nasty little stabby exploitation plot. Or you may come for the academic psychology discourse and the dissertation on art versus capitalism, but you'll stay for the gratuitous women being ripped to pieces. Or rather, you probably won't. So what can we say about the production of Headless Eyes before we wade back through it looking for merit, skill or entertainment? Well, as mentioned, it's a largely one-man affair and a common factor in the films we've seen so far. In fact, stats fans, 8 of the 10 films we've looked at credit the same guy, always a guy, as writer and director. Always a one-bloke job. It seems the nastier end of the market is the home for a lot of personal visions that creatives wish to get up onto the big screen, either because they can get no legitimate directors to show an interest in their greasy, squalid, porny grindhouse violence that they've spat out of their typewriter, or they'd prefer to have complete control themselves for fear of another person messing with their visionary, misanthropic Meisterwerk. Now, a quick word on grindhouse, as it's a term we've dropped, but I think this is the first movie to unquestionably belong in that sticky, sleazy genre. Many folk out there, possibly even you, dear listener, yes, you, may have first come across the G word when, for about an hour and a half in 2007, it was quite the genre du jour. Student rooms all over Britain would have been blue-tacked with a mock-faded, pre-aged homage poster for the movie double bill of the same name, created by Tarantino and Rodriguez, to schlocky pictures written, cast and shot to emulate, almost parody, the scuzzy cheapies of 30 years ago. The movies being death-proof.
Hey Warren, is there anybody in this place you could vouch for to give me a ride home?
Fair lady, your chariot awaits.
And Planet Terror.
Take this. Do what you do best.
Oh, you're not. Don't give him the gun. Not.
Give him the gun, Tolo. Give him that gun. Give him all the guns.
And if you saw them on a double feature in 2007 with a bum-numbing combined runtime of 191 minutes, you would have also enjoyed the accompanying 5 lovingly crafted mock trailers shot with that gritty, grotty, grainy aesthetic for films that never existed but really feel like they should, which I suppose is the point, including
Werewolf Women of the SS.
Hi, Hitler!
Watch in horror as Dr. von Strasser searches in vain for the purest German blood needed to create this unstoppable army.
And Hobo with a Shotgun.
Spread the word, you dirty cocksuckers. Tell all your grave robbing friends I want them out of the city now!
Hobo with a shotgun. The streets gave birth to a stray dog who is now fed up. Living on the streets is tough. And it's about to get tougher.
You want in on this $10? Come on!
Violence, cruelty, murder.
The directors roped in their chummy showbiz mates to provide these, so we get the talents of people like Edgar Wright and Eli Roth and such. So what was this nonsense? Well, I'm hesitating right now as I write this, dear listener, because highly stylized, self-referential, meta-artistic exercises like this set off a very, very specific biological response in me. Or psychological response, maybe? No, it's biological. I can feel myself responding internally as I look at the Rodriguez trailers, the Tarantino posters, the pretend faded creases in the artwork and that deliberately jumpy editing, the added crackles and grainy stock and that digitally faked Ektachrome lens flare, even the carefully choreographed bad dubbing. Responding deep inside a rumbling of, well, something I'm not proud of. Because, listeners, I don't know about you, but I am completely conflicted, right down the middle, with things like this. Both utterly fascinated and totally repelled. Both appealed and appalled. On the one hand, I admire the skill it takes to lovingly create a well-crafted spoof or homage.
Oh, that's beautiful. I always enjoyed to make models when I was a boy. The exactness, the attention to every conceivable detail.
The care and the craft to notice every aspect of a piece of art and reproduce it, flaws and all. Admire to perhaps the point of envy. I was always the kid who loved the drawing old documents for school homework, singeing the edges with my dad's matches, dipping it maybe in tea to stain it a bit, crinkling it under a hot iron to make it look all treasure mappy and authentic. I fucking love that shit. So, I don't know, perhaps looking at the experts do it brilliantly and aware that that might have been a role I could have done but didn't. Maybe it's just that twinge of, should have been me up there. Sure. But in exactly the same way, oh, go fuck yourself, the lot of you. You self-referential, masturbatory, smug, in-joke, know-all, nerdy cunt blasters. Oh, look at us. Look what we did. Look how clever it is. That geeky AV club. We like weird things, so we're better than you, who like normal things. Sneer, which makes people go to Ed Wood all-nighters and compete for the most obscure t-shirt at a concert. You remember the nerd laughter, the knowing giggles and Python quotes of those kids Homer Simpson has to room with when he goes back to college in that episode?
Drinking. Intruder alert. Intruder alert. Stop the humanoid.
The sort of non-inclusive, snarky, condescending reverse snobbery that many bedroom enthusiasts always have when meeting outsiders, those not in the know. Yeah, that. The special needs cattiness that the Big Bang Theory TV show entirely failed to capture. A proclamation that certain obscure art is a club you're not cool enough or arch enough or ironic enough to enjoy.
She came from Greece. She had a thirst for knowledge.
Do you prefer the William Shatner recording of Common People to the pulp version?
Caught her eye.
If so, then I fear you may be a little bit in that territory. movie. What you're doing, Tarantino, Rodriguez, Wright, Roth, Eisner and Zombie, is no smarter than those stalls on British beachfronts where you put on an old-timey hat and a waistcoat and they take your picture in front of a mocked-up saloon and they print it on sepia cardboard to take home to mum. It's that joke. It's just that, but you're spending $200 million on the same gag. And I know, of course, Joe Dante did it in the retro 50s looking tribute with Matinee in 1993.
But if a man and an ant were exposed to radiation simultaneously, the result would be terrible indeed. For the result would be Mant.
We've dissected that in episode 4, I know. But somehow, with love, Dante did it with fun, not clever, arch-ironic cool, so managed to escape being that particular breed of slappable cunt. Oh, Richard, listen to you, just admit it. You've always had a soft spot for the punky, goth, manic, pixie dream girls, and these are exactly the sort of films and festivals they liked, but they never wanted to go to them with you, and you never got over it. Well, okay, maybe. Blimey, I don't know, a bit harsh. Anywho, that was Grindhouse, the movie, a little 2007 meta exercise in millionaires trying to out-geek each other about how awkward with girls they were before they had Uma Thurman's phone number. Grindhouse, the genre, which I started trying to explain about 3 hours ago before I got all carried away, was a collection of genuine movies made to be played almost exclusively, non-stop, back-to-back, all night.
Now, preview time.
In low-rent, grimy cinemas that specialised in all the exploitation genres, kung fu movies, horror, giallo, sexploitation, those good old boy redneck car chase movies, motorcycle movies, blaxploitation, spaghetti westerns, all those genres that were released, way back in the 60s and 70s. Fast to shoot, quick to release, lowest common denominator thrills, all sugar, no nutrition. About which Rodriguez himself said the posters were always much better than the movies. The term grindhouse originated in New York in the 1920s, they say, taking its name from the bump and grind burlesque sex shows and whorehouses that were usually on the same seedy streets as the movie theatres. Plus, it said the cinema owners and barkers could be said to be grinding out the movies somewhat, and indeed grinding out sales and profits by offering ticket prices all day that increased as the day grew late. The earlier you bought a ticket, the cheaper it was. Wait till the evening, the price goes up, encouraging and ensuring they never played to an empty house. Folk wishing to relive this experience can attend the 100-year-old New Beverly Cinema in Los Angeles, which is owned and curated by, you guessed it, Quentin Tarantino, of course, or, here in the UK, where I am, the Nickel Cinema in London's Clerkenwell, which is doing the same thing every night for UK hipsters, keeping those movies alive. But to get back to the point of all this, Kent Bateman's Headless Eyes will sit, or would sit, very nicely on the bill on either of those screens on a sleazy Saturday night. Unlike the prolific grindhouse content providers like Russ Meyer or Ed Wood, however,
They come from the bowels of hell, a transformed race of walking dead.
a Bateman season would be a very short programming run indeed. Kent did not join these two and go on to become a writer-director legend and fill decades with personal stories and a unique vision a la Cronenberg, Allen or Kubrick.
What would you like for Christmas, Stanley?
A fortune computer.
Why do you want a fortune?
Because it has the most advanced operating system called Unix.
It's a Unix system.
It was just this effort, followed 6 years later by a wilderness survival movie called Land of No Return, which paired up Mel Torme and William, Common People, Shatner.
The true story of a man forced to turn his back on civilization and live with a family of wild animals.
And finally, 5 years after that, a prolific producer Bateman is not, his last cinema picture was another outdoorsy romp entitled The Rogue and Grizzly, which, if it sounds like the story of a 19th century New Englander who becomes a mountain man and teams up with a Native American and a bear, you can relax, because that's exactly what it fucking is.
The story of James Adams, a real honest-to-goodness mountain man who really knows how to take care of himself in the wilderness. He learns how to get along with his neighbors, the Indians, and has unique ways with the other inhabitants of the forest. And finally, it's the story of Ben, the huge, lovable teddy bear. I mean, grizzly bear.
Not Not much more to say about the production, aside from the obvious cost-cutting on screen, which shows Bateman was trying to do a lot with a small budget. The two LPs, long players, people under 40, that provided his copyright-free choices of score, from funky 70s grooves to plinky-plonky modern jazzness, were French library recordings, TV Music 101 and TV Music 102. Still available on vinyl for you irritating hipster collectors who want to recreate that New York sound to entertain bob-cutted manic pixie dream girls while you mix retro martinis in your flat before heading off to a pop-up happening. And you can pick them up second-hand online for about 30 to 40 quid each. The only other production point to make is that we need to understand the credits, as minimal as they are, apparently do not tell the whole story. It appears, and not for the first time, the producers, read the backers and money men, were hoping Bateman would deliver a movie with a little more sleaze, a little more shock, and a little more of that grindhouse grottiness that their experience knew would pack the Tranks, Lobos and Zipheads into the 42nd Street Fleapits. Got that quote yet? You got till the end of the episode. So producer Henry Pashard, with his background in porn for profit and under one of his colourful pseudonyms, took the version that Bateman delivered and essentially pepped it up a bit, going back and shooting extra scenes of nudity and bloodshed, and just, inserting them randomly wherever he felt the plot could stand it. This, listeners, is far from a unique event, a producer having a close eye on the box office and taking it upon themselves to, as it were, improve the audience experience and help pull in the punters with some fisticuffs or fanny-sticuffs. Probably most notoriously, in 1976, owner and founder of Penthouse magazine, Bob Guccione, gave director Tinto Brass $17.5 million of his own money to make an historical epic of Caligula, casting big quality names: Malcolm McDowell, Helen Mirren, John Gielgud and Peter O'Toole.
They spoke of it first in whispers. Then it took the media by storm.
I have existed from the morning of the world, and I shall exist until the last star falls from the heavens.
No treachery could equal his evil. No evil was more treacherous.
He's mad!
Caligula, the emperor who devoured Rome.
Only then to hire director Giancarlo Louis to shoot about 6 minutes of the most eye-watering hardcore pornography and slip it into the party scenes, which Guccione clearly felt weren't anywhere near depraved enough. This stuff does happen. So perhaps my critique of Headless Eyes is unfair to Kent Bateman, this movie being something of a mashup of his visions and a profit-hungry producer's instincts. Perhaps it was the Pachard who put the epoxy into eyes frozen in epoxy resin. Because yes, with its art school swirling, its sixth form poetry and trendy nihilism, the film might be the equivalent of the guy at the party in the kitchen, dressed all in black with the smelly roll-ups, playing the bongos with one hand and half-heartedly self-harming with the other. But say what you like about the aesthetic and the mean-spiritedness, you can't say Kent doesn't try. Oh, he's really trying. Compare this movie to earlier episodes, Blood Feast, say, or the ghastly ones,
with some of the most hideous tortures and heinous crimes ever shown on the motion picture screen.
All exercises in shock and repulsion. If there's a theme to those movies, and I've looked hard to find one, the theme's nothing more than, look at that. Whereas writer-director Kent Bateman can at least be said to have loftier intentions and higher ideas, for better or worse, than those standard stalk and slash ketchupy killer thrillers on the loose that came before and of course would follow. I mean, yes, I was teasing him about his tell, don't show pedestrian style and his reliance on more stock cliches than adding beef gravy to Yorkshire pudding.
And Michael, remember Preston?
But he has more to say than all the Friday the 13th relentless psycho with a knife teen shockers put together. Bateman needs no hockey masks or razor gloves, no laboratory creations or risen corpses. His villain is an artist, a creative-y type, but the sad sort whose talent doesn't reach his ambition, a tragic Salieri, someone all creative types might identify with. We discover his wife has been supporting his failed career all this time, a fact which fills him with frustrated rage. He was never as successful as he thought. Driven to desperation to survive in the world who clearly couldn't give a flying arse about his work, his plight leads him to a dumb act of petty theft. A stupid theft ending with the loss of an eye. The last straw for him, a world crushing him further, tipping him into madness. For a man who lives only for his art to lose an eye, his sight, what is he now? He was very little before. Just rage and hate, bitterness and violence. And it's a credit, I think, that this amount of thought has gone in to creating our villain. Bateman has tried to give him motives, means, a backstory. He's tried to show a film about art and madness. His heart is in the right place, and we shouldn't knock the guy for aiming high and missing. After all, the road to a blockbuster discount bin is paved with good intentions. But, and it's a huge but, miss it does. He misses. Oh, he misses. What we have, I feel, with Headless Eyes is what could have been, in other hands, a terrifying story of frustration and artistic drive and psychopathology, in the hands of perhaps De Palma or even the artsy palette of Argento. This might have been quite something, but regrettably, it was in the slippery, clumsy hands of Ken Bateman. Intentions in smentions, as they probably said at Nuremberg. Idly doodling on the back of a pack of cigarettes, he lazily just ticks off all the cliched how to show madness tropes of a 17-year-old goth art student who's been lent a cine camera for a weekend. Zooms, swirly skies, a booming score, focus twists, woozy wobbling sweeps, a ranty voiceover, sweat and shadows. He persistently hammers us to death with the token, uninspired visuals that are trying so hard to give the film an art house aesthetic, to raise it above Gordon Lewis's gratuitous drive-in blood feast of a decade earlier.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to witness some scenes which under no circumstances should be viewed by anyone with a heart condition or anyone who is easily upset.
But only comes up with something not so much tense or terrifying as just plain tedious. Bateman's amateur eye is let down too by performers on the lower end of the budget, if not performers who've fallen off that end completely. A leading man who demonstrates rage and melancholy with a pantomime stare and ranting, teeth-gritted mania. One can almost picture Bateman on set shouting, "More! Again! More! But more yelling! Shouty! More shouty!" at his cast, desperate as he is to demonstrate all the cliches of madness. The library music we talked about is asked to do most of that heavy lifting and comes from the more is more school of piling on drums and sound effects. The lighting is all glaring shadows, both overlit and underlit. The frozen in the freezer ending, coming eventually when it does, is a long breathe out, not from suspense, but just the tired, stretchy, thank Christ end that you might feel after an 8-hour plane journey. Finally, I think what really marks it out as an ambitious dud is the confusion between suspense and boredom. Given we know at the end of each achingly long, tortuous scene of following up and down stairs, corridors, in and out of lifts, up and down streets, in and out of cars, is another off-screen, bloody, squirty murder, we just want the film to bloody well get on with it. I mean, a great script by Chandler, Highsmith, or Town, or another director, Hitchcock, Fincher, De Palma, could have a man following a woman in an elevator as a nerve-shredding, pulse-pounding, edge-of-your-seat, "Quick! He's behind you!" And the longer the scene, the more tense we'd get. But sadly, this is a talent, and our director, I don't feel, has it. Waiting for a lift in Headless Eyes is duller than waiting for an actual lift. Hitchcock knew how to create tension and suspense. Sadly, Kent Bateman is no Hitchcock. Hell, he's not even Kent Brockman.
This is Kent Brockman with a special report from the Channel 6 newscopter. A large bear-like animal, most likely a bear.
Nasty though? Belonging on our list? Well, it's another on the DPP's list 3, so rather than the prosecution fines or jail time, Headless Eyes was largely as a VHS tape just moved to the back of the store or under the counter to avoid police inspections and keep video store owners on the right side of their local constabulary. It's not pleasant, but it's far from gory. I mean, yes, the attacks, as we're discovering on this journey, are aggressive madmen on top of screaming women, which is unstomachable for many, and part of the whole banned video menu of tired tropes. Its tension is zero, so it's hardly nerve-shredding or upsetting in that respect, and all the murders slash eye gougings actually appear, as it were, off-screen. And no time, if I recall, do spoons touch eyes. It's all shot from behind and created with suggestion. There's blood, screaming, growling and writhing, and then we pull back to reveal a face covered in paint. In fact, the scenes at the producer's office are shot with the victim actually off-screen completely and out of frame. So yes, nasty, certainly not one for BBC Christmas Day viewing, but you'd be hard-pushed to find a still image of a knife and flesh. Infinitely tamer than all the Rob Zombie, tortury, hostile stuff that's now widely available on Netflix to anyone with a remote control or a telephone. Of what are we reminded as we watch it? What bells does it ring? Headless Eyes nods along to many other pictures, riding a wobbly wobble on the coattails of some classics. The pleading and sorrow of our killer, as he kind of murders against his will, is reminiscent of the glorious Richard Attenborough weeping and apologising and shushing his victims in the horrifying 10 Rillington Place.
No, breathe, Muriel. No.
Don't make me hurt you! Please!
Luxury chloroform spared no expense. The footage of New York is lovely, all handheld and echoing traffic honks and that steam billowing out of gates and lovely 70s nightlife hipsters. Both Michael Chapman, who shot Taxi Driver, and Ralph DeBode, who shot Saturday Night Fever, would applaud the groovy, grindy images. And if you liked David Fincher's Zodiac, imagine someone tried to remake it for about £9 on the Nokia 3310 with some people they found in a bus shelter. And when we get there next summer, you can't tell me Abel Ferrara didn't own a copy of this when he began work on the infamous Driller Killer. Two weird bells that rang, maybe just for me. I was reminded oddly also of the TV theme to Let's Pretend, with the same odd wormy quacks and squeaks and squonks. And if you played the music to this alongside Howard Shore's amazing score for The Fly, you'd definitely hear some echoes. Oh, and this won't mean anything to anyone.
So we're doing this job on 60th and 3rd. Big friggin' ball breaker of a job, right?
The repeated, my eye, looped over and over.
And we got the area roped off, so that some schmuck don't walk through there and take a wrecking ball between the eyes.
Just reminded me of Robert Costanzo's my legs turn in City Slickers at the construction worker.
And she's screaming, my legs! And I say, no shit, your legs. You got a 2,000-pound goddamn crane on them.
God, Costanzo's good in every movie he's in. And I just checked, he's been in over 300. The ending, as mentioned, is a preempting somewhat of The Shining, but the aesthetic actually is nearest to a fine bit of British comedy that you may have missed. Writer-comedian Matthew Holness has an alter ego, based apparently on novelist Sean Hudson, named Garth Marenghi.
Can I just say that when I entered there, the floor should have been entirely covered in dry ice to give the impression that I don't have feet. So, just bear in mind I may or may not have hooves.
But what many of you might not know is another one of his comedy characters is a guy called Randolph Kyer.
You're odd-looking, aren't you?
Yes, I suppose I am.
And you always play these horrible characters.
It's not really by choice.
A washed-up actor and star of some nasty exploitation movies called Bitch Killer.
My name is Sidney King. I hate a lot of things. Fruits, colours, and above all, women.
A pastiche of the cheap homemade 70s slashers, almost too lovingly done.
As I say, that particular film is not one I'm personally proud of.
Well, you oughtn't be. It's horrible.
I know.
Bitch Killer. I just get these terrible headaches.
Bitch Killer. The dirtiest, nastiest, sexiest film you'll see all year.
The love and care put into these mock trailers by Holness & Co. is a delight. And I know I said just 6 minutes ago I had a problem with this sort of clever parodying, so now maybe I'm just rethinking, and perhaps I only have a problem if it's done by fucking millionaires. The release of Headless Eyes hasn't the drama, controversy or scandal of some of our earlier episodes. There's been no arguments over ownership, a la Night of the Living Dead, or no hiding copies of it in James Furman's drawers, a la Straw Dogs. No one in theatre foyers was even given a Headless Eye Protecto juice to drink. It was rated officially an X by the Motion Picture Association of America. However, the distributors apparently spent money on splashy press ads with PG certificates on them to drive audience interest and attendance. Grindhouse Masters JER Pictures out of New York premiered it in New York in October 1971, paired with another of their offerings in a double bill with our episode 2 monstrosity, The Ghastly Ones.
Into this house came the monsters of slaughter. Oh my God!
That would have been quite an evening. It could be caught at various drive-ins across the US as well, aside other cheapies, occasionally under the alternate title, Bloodthirsty Butcher.
Beautiful. Really beautiful.
Reviews then and now are mixed, let's say that, once again demonstrating that it's who you are rather than what this is that will determine if it's a must-see or a must-avoid. Joseph A. Zimba from Bleeding Skull said, "Unkempt and gloomy, yet somehow radiant, the mind-bending Headless Eyes is a touchpoint for every element that makes nonconformist 70s trash horror cinema so enduring today. As soon as the end rolls round, you'll want to watch it again." Yeah, okay, Joe. Whereas website Fantastic Movie Musings and Ramblings had Dave Sindler give the film a negative review, calling it pointless, pretentious, annoying, and no fun at all, which personally I think is slightly nearer the mark. Film scholars Bill Landis and Michelle Clifford write in Sleazoid Express, of course, with murder scenes choreographed like slow-moving sex assaults, The Headless Eyes is true to the psychosexual underpinnings of blood horror, ultimately earning its place in the exploitation pantheon because it's as isolated, weird and discordant as its main character. Which I think, is a bit overwritten, but it's kind of fair. The only other review of note I want to flag is the 6 out of 10 review listed right there, and you can look it up on IMDb, which states, among other things, obviously, it wasn't fitted with enough blood and gore for the distributor, so the producer added some scenes. And then the review goes on to discuss who should have the credit for it. A review written by, hold on, let me just remind myself, I have it, the director, Ken Bateman. Headless Eyes' life post-theatres is the usual bounce around of bannings and reissues, disappearances, reappearances, special editions and remasterings. From what I can see, the first appearance on VHS was about 10 years after its cinema release, somewhere around 1982-ish, 1983, by a VHS distributor named Sapphire. Ooh, Sapphire Pictures, doesn't that just reek of class? While it sat on video store shelves, meanwhile, Charles Band, the founder of VHS giant Media Home Entertainment in the US, started up Wizard Video.
You are aware that I am not really a wizard. And he said, yes, I am aware of that. What I want you to do is to use your acting skills to portray the wizard.
To deal in the nastier end of the home rental market, and scraped up the rights to some Italian horror classics and sex comedies.
Honey, mate.
Aficionados and collectors will be interested to know that Wizard's
You shall not pass!
distribution deal with the execs at New Line Cinema gave them, as it were, first access or first refusal to a neat little set of culty classics, and they turned a huge profit, releasing titles including The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Female Trouble, and of course Pink Flamingos.
What parent would be proud their son made Pink Flamingos? Really? I mean, in people's divine parents, how liberal can you be? You're in drag eating dog shit. That's... Dr. Spock doesn't tell you what to do in a baby book for that.
With his wallet's fat from Chainsaw Money, Band saw a financial future also in this new Atari Games console that was all the rage. However, his violent 16-bit games of Texas Chainsaw and Halloween were a little too much for an audience used to the nail-biting tension of Pong, Frogger or Centipede, so that apparently dried up pretty quick. In 1984, they began to release their movie titles in what's known as big box format, those larger, clunkier boxes that we all grew up with in Blockbuster as something of a retro novelty. And 2 years later, in 1986, Headless Eyes joined this collection, alongside Big Box, I Spit on Your Grave and The Boogeyman.
When you were a child, did they warn you about the Boogeyman? The Boogeyman. He hurt bad children and did terrible things to their mummies.
Big Box Boogeyman. That sounds like I can't think of anything. However, the fashion for these was short-lived. Allegedly, in 2013, Charles Band re-released the popular Wizard horror big boxes again, claiming that they were the rare, original, unused, highly collectible cases. However, this has been largely debunked, apparently, by the sort of people who largely debunk things. A company called Lightning Films. God, they really knew how to do it back then, didn't they? Sapphire Films, Lightning Films, it was all such an exciting time in the 80s. Also released a VHS of the movie in the mid-80s. Jet Films, another one, were behind the next VHS appearance in 2004 and appeared to be the rights owner, in that format at least, until Code Red DVD.
Did you order the Code Red?
I did the job. Did you order the Code Red? You're goddamn right I did!
Released a shiny Blu-ray in December 2016, which features 2 alternate cuts, but supposedly, if you watch carefully, due to scene trimming, omits the all-important title card on one of those. They give with one hand, they scoop out your eyes with the other. Oh, and finally, if you like the cover art, the huge eyeball, nerves and goo and entrails trailing, with the dead woman in the background, an image which did rather suggest it was a film about a giant killer eye that sort of bounced about New York like a monocular space hopper bonking hookers on the noggin, then you'll find they use that artwork again to promote the 1999 film The Killer Eye, which is exactly that plot. Oh, List Schmist, we're going to have to do that one. Oh, and you thought I forgot. Tranks, Lobos, and Zipheads. Any idea?
McFly, Jennifer Jane Parker, 3793 Oakhurst Street, Hilldale, age 47.
That phrase, for some reason, has stuck with me since I first heard it uttered by a futuristic Californian policewoman on the big screen in 1989.
Hilldale. Nothing but a breeding ground for Tranks, Lobos, and Zipheads. Yeah, they ought to tear this whole place down.
To describe Hilldale, the suburban area of Hill Valley where Michael J. Fox and his bride Jennifer end up living miserably in Back to the Future 2, as you well know. Before we talk about what's next on the naughty list, don't forget bonus feature-length episodes with interviews, insights, sequels, and all things horror history are available on
Let's Get the Band's X-Rated Extras.
Subscribe via Patreon or Apple Podcasts. Bonus episodes currently await talking the full history of censorship and scandal that brought us the original Video Nasty Moral Panic, the insanity of independent film financing, or why, for the price of 40 seconds of an Avengers movie, you could have made the entire Evil Dead. Episode 3 is a nasty night out in London with the preeminent X-rated experts, where I had my jaw dropped, eyes widened and stomach turned. And look out for the newest drop, coming hopefully soon, a tour of what it was like to be an innocent teenage horror fan in Britain in the 1980s, and exactly, I suppose, who you've been listening to all these weeks. Little somethings from under the counter in brown wrapping, just for discerning connoisseurs. Next time on Let's Get the Band Back Together.
A medulla-like from times gone by, untouched and peaceful, a lagoon to dream in. But sometimes there is a rude awakening. Or sometimes there isn't one at all. Bay of Blood. Greed turns the peaceful inhabitants of this bay into real beasts. Bay of Blood. A film that requires strong nerves. One that will make your blood freeze. Bay of Blood, also known as Bloodbath.
Yes, the movie that Jeffrey Frentzen of no less a magazine than Ciné Fantastique said, the director's most complete failure to date. If you were appalled by the gore and slaughter in Blood and Black Lace, this latest film contains twice the murders, each one accomplished with an obnoxious detail. Red herrings are ever present and serve as the only interest keeping the plot in motion, but nothing really redeems the dumb storyline. Yep, we joined splatter legend Mario Bava's blood-drenched gothic tale of property rights and machetes to the face. It's 1971's Bay of Blood. I'll see you there.